Your Excellency Ms. Tandy Maraka, Deputy Minister of International Relations and Cooperation of South Africa, my dear sister. It's really nice to see you. Your Excellency Alanga Hahatu, Coordinating Minister for Economic Affairs of Indonesia. Your Excellency Rebecca Greenspan, Secretary General of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, also my dear sister. Your Excellency Ambassador Exolisa Mahongo, DDG of DIRCO, South Africa. Mr. Lin Feng, Director General, Department of International Trade and Economic Affairs, China's Ministry of Commerce. Friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to attend today's launching ceremony of the Initiative on Cooperation Supporting Modernization in Africa. It is such an important topic. Yesterday, China's Premier Li Qiang announced at Session 1 of the G20 Johannesburg Summit that China and South Africa jointly launched the Initiative on Cooperation Supporting Modernization in Africa, which we take as another indelible imprint left by Africa during the evolution of the G20 after the adoption, if we recall, of the Initiative on Supporting Industrialization in Africa and least developed countries during the G20 Hangzhou Summit back in 2016. Achieving modernization, ladies and gentlemen, is the shared dream of all developing countries. As the largest developing country, China, in light of its own national conditions, has successfully explored a path of Chinese modernization. Its features include a huge population going together towards the goal of modernization, common prosperity for all. We believe each one should not be left behind. Material and cultural ethnic progress, harmony between humanity and nature, and very importantly, peaceful development. China has proven through its own practice that modernization is by no means a single choice question, nor is it a privilege reserved for a small handful of countries. The global South also should achieve leapfrog development through tireless efforts and hard work. Africa is a continent with the highest concentration of developing countries. However, historical injustice, unilateralism, protectionism, and economic bullying have severely hindered Africa's progress. Ensuring that no country is left behind is the original aspiration of the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, as well as our common pursuit. In September 2024, the Beijing Summit of the FOCAC was successfully held. Joining hands to promote modernization is one of the important themes of the Beijing Summit. During President Ramaphosa's attendance at the summit, and also during his state visit to China, President Xi Jinping and President Ramaphosa agreed to jointly launch the initiative on cooperation supporting modernization in Africa during the G20 Johannesburg Summit this year, which aims to encourage the international community to pour greater efforts and also provide broader cooperation space and stronger support for Africa's modernization cause. The initiative on cooperation supporting modernization in Africa was jointly drafted by China and Africa, bears distinctive African features, and charts the course for Africa's development. There are several features I would like to share with you very briefly. First, the initiative reflects Africa's aspirations, needs, and expectations. This initiative stays focused on the AU Agenda 2063 and the themes of the G20 Johannesburg Summit, and enumerates trade facilitation, green development, poverty reduction, and improving people's livelihoods, universal health, climate change, development financing, localized development of enterprises, and value chain addition. These are all the key areas of cooperation. And this initiative charts the pathway, we believe, for achieving Africa's modernization. Second, this initiative, we believe, sets out the principles for cooperation with Africa. Africa should be the beneficiary of its cooperation and partnership with the other partners in the world, and should enjoy the fruits of economic globalization. This initiative calls upon the international community to remain goal and action-oriented, observe the principles of justice and equitability, openness and win-win result, putting people first, diversity and inclusiveness, sustainable development, and also security and peace, and supports Africa in independently exploring a modernization path suited to Africa's realities. We believe all these principles are very fundamental whenever any partner in the world conducts cooperation with African brothers and sisters. The benefits should be enjoyed by the African people, and it should be conducted on an equal footed basis. Third, this initiative utters the chorus for supporting multilateralism. We believe, friends, the world today is far from being tranquil. The law of jungle, where the strong bullies the weak and the big bullies the small, is resurfacing. It is not only a phenomenon, it is a reality. Africa has been suffering from the headwinds of protectionism, committed to the principle of extensive consultation and joint contribution for shared benefits. This initiative calls upon the equal-footed dialogue among different civilizations and enhancing the voice and representation of our African brothers and sisters in international affairs, so as to achieve diverse and inclusive modernization. There is also at this moment something else very important I wish to share with you, dear friends. China is committed to supporting Africa's modernization by expanding unilateral opening up to Africa. So one important measure we have taken, I wish to say something about it, was this June, President Xi Jinping announced that China stands ready to implement the zero tariff measure on 100% tariff lines for imports from 53 African countries having diplomatic ties with China, through the signing of agreements on economic partnership for shared development, or what we call the CDIPA. This is a major step taken by China to further opening up, which will boost the export of high-quality products from Africa to China. And China has already signed an early harvest agreement with the Republic of Congo and reached principled agreement with the Republic of Ghana. Going forward, China will continue to promote the signing of CDIPA so as to use this zero tariff policy to bring more benefits for African enterprises and for every citizen in the continent of Africa. So this is one very important thing we wish to share with you. This shows China's genuine commitment to expanding or opening up to the outside world, and also joining hands with our African brothers and sisters to reach modernization and to achieve prosperity. Dear friends, the chapter of development and revitalization for the Global South is unfolding. Last month, the fourth plenary session of the 20th Central Committee of the Communist Party of China deliberated and adopted the recommendation of the CPC Central Committee for formulating the 15th five-year plan for national economic and social development, Under new circumstances, the Chinese economy stands on a solid foundation with many strengths, strong resilience, and vast potential as well. The supporting conditions and fundamental trends for sound and long-term economic development remain unchanged. China is stepping up its effort to foster a new pattern of development, steadily expanding its institutional opening up, sharing opportunities, and pursuing common development with all countries. The African countries are also working tirelessly towards the vision and aspirations set out in the AU Agenda 2063. We call upon more African countries, non-regional partners, and international organizations to participate in the initiative, to pour greater efforts to support Africa's modernization and join hands to build a community with a shared future for mankind. And I wish to thank you for listening. Thank you.
Your Excellency, Minister Erlanger, Your Excellency Secretary General Greenspan, Your Excellency Deputy Minister Morata, Your Excellency Vice Minister Miao Deyu, distinguished guests, on behalf of the Ministry of Commerce of the People's Republic of China, I would like to warmly welcome all the distinguished guests to this event. President Xi Jinping noted at the 19th G20 Summit that China would like to continuously deepen international cooperation on green minerals with all sides. This morning, Premier Li Qiang announced the International Economic and Trade Cooperation Initiative on green mining and minerals that China jointly proposed with related parties. This is an important move to promote global green development, which will effectively facilitate the building of a partnership for mineral resources cooperation that is open, just, reasonable for win-win results. I hereby announce with great pleasure that China, Burundi, Cambodia, Cameroon, the Central African Republic, Comoros, Cote d'Ivoire, Djibouti, Ethiopia, Iran, Kenya, Laos PDR, Mozambique, Myanmar, Nigeria, São Tomé and Príncipe, Solomon Islands, Uganda, Uzbekistan, Zimbabwe, and UNIDO jointly launched the International Economic and Trade Cooperation Initiative on green mining and minerals. I also want to express our sincere thanks to Equatorial Guinea, Nicaragua, Sierra Leone, and UNCTAD for their strong support for this initiative. The initiative comes amid urgent calls for deeper international cooperation in the field of mineral resources. Green and low-carbon development is injecting new impetus into high-quality development of the mineral sector and creating new development opportunities for all countries. The support for and participation in the initiative within such a short period of time speak to international community's eager expectations for enhancing international cooperation in this field. The initiative paints a blueprint providing feasible paths towards green sustainable development in mining. It elucidates the concepts of green mining and minerals and identifies 7 cooperation areas to share benefits through joint contribution in a flexible, practical manner. These diverse and pragmatic elements provide constructive guidance for future cooperation. The initiative advocates coordination and commits to building the open, inclusive, universally beneficial, balanced, and win-win international cooperation network for green mining and minerals. The initiative encourages independent, bilateral, and multi-party efforts to carry out cooperation, while underlining that related cooperation shall not prejudice participants' international obligations, as well as their domestic laws and regulations. Going forward, we welcome more countries and international organizations in joining and supporting the initiative, pursuing deeper international economic trade cooperation in green mining, and jointly safeguarding fair, reasonable, stable, and unimpeded global green mining industrial and supply chains that deliver mutual benefit and win-win outcomes. Distinguished guests, China has long been an active advocate for for Africa's industrialization on the basis of respect for the will of African countries. The G20 Hangzhou Summit in 2016 adopted the initiative on supporting industrialization in Africa and least developed countries. This year, as the G Summit comes to the African continent for the first time, and with support of countries and international organizations, including Kenya, Nigeria, and UNCTAD, China launches China's actions to implement the G20 initiative on supporting industrialization in Africa and LDCs. To review and summarize China-Africa practical cooperation in industrialization for almost a decade, a vivid reflection of China-Africa collaboration in building a community with a shared future. China's support for industrialization in Africa has been rich in content and remarkable in outcomes. First, China supports people-centered and inclusive industrialization. At the end of 2024, China's cumulative manufacturing investments in Africa reached $7.07 billion. The investments have generated abundant job opportunities, tax revenues, and exports, strengthened the competitiveness of African manufacturing, and benefited people all across Africa. Second, China supports sustainable industrialization grounded in national conditions. Agriculture is the backbone industry of African countries. China has invested more than $1 billion in over 200 agribusinesses on the continent, leading to a 30 to 60% increase in average crop yields. The agriculture cooperation zones and agriculture products processing plants have enhanced the agriculture product industrial chain in Africa and benefited more than 1 million smallholder farmers. Third, China supports environment-friendly and green industrialization. China actively participates in projects cooperation and construction in photovoltaic, wind, and other renewable energy sources in Africa, and provides support for key technologies, equipment manufacturing, and capacity building. To accelerate Africa's energy transition, making tangible contribution to tackling global climate change together. Last but not least, China supports technology-empowered new industrialization. Chinese business have helped African countries establish over 80 major power infrastructure and built or upgraded roughly 150,000 kilometers of backbone networks for communications. Chinese technologies, know-how, and investment are helping African countries upgrade mobile payments, e-commerce, and other fields. With the establishment of a Global Development Institute announced by Premier Li Qiang yesterday, China will provide intellectual support for industrialization in all Global South countries, including those in Africa. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Minister Councillor Tsai Wen-fei. His Excellency Mia Deyu, Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs of People's Republic of China. His Excellency Mr. Lin Feng, Director General of the Department of International Trade and Economic Affairs. Her Excellency Rebecca Greenspan, Secretary General of UNCTAD. Her Excellency Thandi Moraka, Deputy Minister of International Relations, Cooperation of Republic of South Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor for me to join you today as we work toward a shared goal, ensure that the global transition to low carbon futures become catalysts for inclusive and sustainable growth. We met at a time when demand for clean energy technologies is accelerating and global needs for critical minerals such as nickel, cobalt, copper, lithium are projected to rise sharply in the coming decades. President Prabowo and President Ramaphosa has been meeting prior to the summit in Jakarta, and among others, President Prabowo, Indonesia would like to extend the collaboration and cooperation between Indonesia and South Africa, and President Prabowo also asked us to make CEO summit meeting bilateral during this G20 meeting. And the meeting was presented by the Vice President of Gibran 2 days ago, and significant signing of memorandum in few projects has been notified. So Indonesia has been involved in this critical minerals since 1967. So we have an experience of extracting the minerals, processing the industry, doing the trading for the supply chain, as well as developing the industry based on the people centers. Therefore, today's is present a major opportunity for the African continent, home to immense mineral wealth and rising demographic powerhouse. The history shows that resource abundance alone is not enough. To avoid remaining at the bottom of the value chain, mineral-rich countries must prioritize value addition, not just an extraction. Therefore, Indonesian experience in the last 10 years, which also doing the value addition of the mineralization and downstreaming, that is one of the projects or the model that can be replicated in the African countries. There are many countries are opposed to what Indonesia doing, but we are keen to keep doing it, especially with our friends from China, from South Africa, from UNTAN, from the UN, and especially also as the decision of the G20s. Right. We continue or we stop? Continue? We can continue, okay. The Green Mineral Initiative offers an important pathway to have producer economies to participate more meaningfully in the global value chain, strengthen open and secure markets to promote downstream industries. Indonesia shares this vision with our own experience that downstreaming supported by sound regulation, investment incentive creates jobs, strengthen domestic industry, increase national revenue, and provided foreign exchange and capital that is needed for further creating employment and further industrial development. Financing will be crucial, with developing countries facing annual climate finance gap of 1.8 trillion. We need more accessibility, predictability, and timely financing through blended instruments, multinational development banks reform, and strengthen local capital markets. We thank the People's Republic of China for convening this event, as well as for the South African government for advancing the Green Minerals Initiative. If harnessed wisely, critical minerals can support stronger industrial base, create jobs, enhance economic resilience, especially in the least developed countries. Indonesia is committed to advancing cooperation in 3 areas: policy and incentive that encourage sustainable downstream investment, innovative financing for industrial capacity and technology development, and stronger regional value chain through shared infrastructures and aligned regulation. Excellency, together we can ensure that critical minerals becoming a driver of the next economic growth and industrialization. Thank you.
Dear Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs of South Africa, dear friend, and dear Director General of International Trade of the Minister of Commerce of China. Thank you so much for all of you to being here. Thank you for inviting us. And thank you to our Chinese host for convening this important event. We at UNCTAD are very committed, very supportive of the initiative that are being presented, and especially we have been participating in the Green Mining and Minerals Initiative that is so close to what we do. And let me start by saying that somewhere in rural South Africa tonight, a family will turn on lights powered by the sun. In a village in Ethiopia, a clinic will refrigerate vaccines using battery storage. In Indonesia, a student will charge a laptop from a solar panel installed on her school's roof. These moments are revolutionary, not because the technology is new, but because for centuries, modern energy required infrastructure these communities never had. Coal plants, oil refineries, power grids stretching for thousands of miles. The clean energy transition isn't just replacing one fuel source with another. It's changing who can access energy and on what terms. This matters because renewable energy is structurally different from fossil fuels. Oil and gas are hunter-gatherer technologies. You extract a resource, you burn it once, it's gone. You must extract again. The cycle repeats endlessly, each barrel consumed requiring another barrel found. But renewables are like agriculture. You invest once in a solar panel or wind turbine, and permanent capacity is added. That panel generates electricity for decades. That turbine turns wind into power year after year. Value compounds rather than depletes. Knowledge accumulates rather than exhausts. That difference creates possibilities that didn't exist in the fossil fuel era. And Chinese technology and investments have made very important contributions for these awesome possibilities to exist at all. But here's the tension. While renewable energy can be distributed, the minerals that make it possible cannot. Cobalt, lithium, nickel, they are concentrated geologically, extracted in specific places, predominantly in the developing world. So far, these countries capture very little of the value chains they power. And today I gave a number. In the critical minerals market today is around $2.5 trillion, if I remember correctly. Africa exports $266 billion of critical minerals. But the value that stays in Africa is 3%. 3% of the value chain. So how important is what we are doing here, dear Vice Minister, dear Director General? Because precisely what you are saying is, let's add value. Let's help the modernization of these countries, and let's try for them to have a bigger share on the value of what they own. And it's in this sense, the story of critical minerals is both very new but also very old. If we follow the old pattern, then we'll have changed the fuel source without changing the fundamental terms of trade. So, Excellencies, many developing countries export raw materials, only to watch them return as finished products. Our latest State of Commodity Dependence report that UNCTAD has done for many decades shows that 108 developing countries remain commodity dependent. 2/3 of the developing countries remain commodity dependent, and nearly 90% of all African countries. China knows this story of unequal terms of trade well. It suffered them. And to a large extent, China is where it is today because of how hard it fought to overcome them. This is why these three initiatives are so important. Together, they recognize that sustainable supply chains require sustainable partnerships, that reliable access to minerals depends on reliable partnerships with the countries that have them, that industrialization requires support for building productive capacity, that modernization means technology transfer and knowledge sharing, that value chains work best when value is shared. And I really thank you, Vice Minister, for having put that on the table. Because, you know, coming from UNCTAD, this is what we have fought for so long. So trade facilitation, you talked about it, green development, value chain addition, shared values, the zero tariff measures that you are proposing to the African countries, the, uh, uh, the initiative on critical minerals and green extraction, strengthening of multilateralism. What can I say? I come from the UN. So I can only welcome and say we all have to have that voice. In this sense, this initiative is not only an answer to the test of the future of trade, but of multilateralism itself. It is an important opportunity for China to show the world that as its voice in the world grows, it will choose to not write a new chapter in an old story, but to write a new story altogether. That multipolarity can be a road for inclusion. We have said, you know, multipolarity is a fact, it's not a choice. What is a choice is multilateralism. But multipolarity holds the promise of inclusion, holds the promise of inclusion. So if multipolarity can be a road of inclusion, crafting a climate of cooperation, a currency of common gain, and a course for shared prosperity. President Xi Jinping said, and I quote, "The world is witnessing transformation not seen in 100 years." End of quote. Let's take this opportunity to make it a reality for all and not only for a few. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Program Director. The Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs from the People's Republic of China, Your Excellency, Mr. Miao Deyu. I hope I've pronounced you very well. The Coordinating Minister for Economic Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia, His Excellency Alianga Hartarto, the Secretary General of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, Her Excellency Madame Rebecca Greenspan, who is looking so bright and beautiful. I don't know, is it because of the sun of South Africa that you are so bright as you are today? The Deputy Director General of the Department of International Relations and Cooperation in the Republic of South Africa, His Excellency Ambassador Tolisa Mabongo, who has been at the center of supporting this initiative that we are launching here today. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, various media houses present here, good afternoon. It is indeed a privilege for me to address this important joint ceremony today on the launch of the Joint Initiative on Cooperation Supporting Modernization in Africa. Together with the government of the People's Republic of China, we are really proud to have witnessed this momentous occasion. We do this against the backdrop of South Africa's hosting of a very successful Johannesburg Leaders Summit of the Group of 20, which is a very historic event that is happening for the first time on our soil as a continent of Africa. I am particularly honored to be part of this historic ceremony in my portfolio as a Deputy Minister responsible for Africa 5, Asia and Middle East, wherein I carry the responsibility of ensuring that South Africa's engagement with China remains aligned to our foreign policy priorities and also our national interest as a country, while at the same time strengthening Africa's broader developmental agenda. Our collaboration under the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, which is FOCAC, has been central to this endeavor, wherein it has really helped in providing a structured platform for delivering tangible outcomes. FOCAC has served as a cornerstone of Africa-China engagements, allowing us to translate political solidarity into concrete socio-economic cooperations. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the AU's Agenda 2063, where we are focusing on the Africa that we want, remains our blueprint for transformation. Its 7 aspirations set out as a clear vision of our integrated and a prosperous and peaceful continent, driven by its own citizens and also acting as a dynamic force in the global arena. From the Chinese side, China's policy of peaceful development and its emphasis on economic growth as a foundation for stability continues to be strategic for the continent of Africa's development priorities. Our joint initiative is launched with the expression wherein we need to support African countries in their efforts to independently explore modernization paths suited to their national conditions and to fulfill African people's aspirations for a better life for all. In the spirit of the G20 Leaders Summit, under the theme Solidarity, Equality and Sustainability, we acknowledge China's 8 Action for Global Development outlined by President Xi Jinping at the G20 Rio de Janeiro Summit in Brazil. Similarly, we acknowledge China's contribution to facilitating the adoption of the initiative on supporting industrialization in Africa and least developed countries using the G20 Hangzhou Summit as a resolution and also as a reference. These and other issues, which are all important to the African continent, are also strongly reflected in the G20 South Africa Summit Leaders Declaration, which was adopted here in this very same precinct yesterday at this very same venue. South Africa's G20 presidency has strategically leveraged the G20 platform to advance Agenda 2063 goals. Through its task forces, working groups, and its thematic framing, which is solidarity, equality, and sustainability, South Africa has an embedding continental priorities like your energy and food security, industrialization process, the debt reform initiative, social inclusion, and governance reforms into a global economic discourse. The South African G20 presidency has identified structured and institutionalized inequality as a major threat to global economic growth and stability. His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa thus established a committee of independent experts on global inequality. For the first time in the history of the G20, inequality is being addressed not as a peripheral issue, but as a systematic challenge that undermines growth, peace, and stability. This is also strongly aligned to Agenda 2030 and its Sustainable Development Goals that are set out by the UN General Assembly. South Africa's presidency has elevated Africa's priorities into a global economic governance, mobilized financing for infrastructure and energy and climate adaptation, supported industrialization and the need for technological innovation, trade and youth empowerment strategies that are aimed at strengthening African Union representation and also promoted a just global transition that meets Africa's developmental needs. Under our G20 presidency, we have also advocated for the G20 to acknowledge that global shifts such as the green transition, digitalization, and new industrial technologies are rapidly increasing the demand for critical minerals. They note that many developing mineral-rich countries, especially in our continent of Africa, have not fully benefited due to underinvestment and also limited value addition and also lack of technological capabilities and also issues of social and environmental challenges that our African countries continue to be subjected to. To address all these issues, South Africa has advanced a critical mineral framework with the endorsement of the G20 with the aim of creating sustainable, transparent, and resilient critical mineral value chains. The framework promotes international cooperation, supports investment in exploration, and also encourages local beneficiation, wherein we need to strengthen governance and protect the sovereignty of various member states that continues to have this endowment of these critical mineral resources, inclusive to a process of an economic development initiative whilst ensuring environmental and social responsibility must be a priority. In essence, ladies and gentlemen, we are saying with our critical mineral framework that we have adopted here today, we need to have a value addition at source everywhere where these critical minerals will be extracted in the continent of Africa. G20 leaders also expressed strong support for the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, which provides an opportunity for trade, economic, and also developmental initiatives that are inclusive and, amongst others, the free movement of goods and services and other factors of production, and also the whole issue of intra-regional investments and foreign direct investments that needs to be directed to the continent of Africa. The full and effective implementation of Africa Free Trade Agreement depends on the speeding up of infrastructure development initiatives throughout the continent that will make it easy for goods and services to move from one African country to another, wherein we need to connect the 55 countries with almost 1.3 billion people with the combined gross domestic product valued at 3.4 trillion US dollars. In effect, the South Africa-led G20 agenda serves as both as an accelerator and also an international amplifier for Agenda 2063's long-term continental vision. This alignment is not just rhetorical, and South Africa's initiatives are aimed at unlocking G20 level cooperation, financing, and also policy support initiatives. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is essential that within the joint initiative on cooperation supporting modernization in Africa, consideration must be given to programs that add value to Africa's continental integration in order to realize maximum impact. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we stand at a defining moment in Africa's modernization journey, wherein technology, connectivity, and environmental sustainability are not optional. They are the engines of growth, the pillars of competitiveness, and the foundation of resilience in the 21st century. From a historical perspective, it must be recalled that in the 1960s, China at the stage that was still at a developing stage, with limited scope for international assistance, it has pioneered a regional approach to develop in the Southern Africa by investing in the development of the Dar es Salaam as a regional port, together with the development of the Tanzara Railway and fuel pipeline to the side of Zambia. South Africa continues to recognize this pioneering role played by China in this particular regard, with our request that the joint initiatives towards cooperation supporting modernization in Africa should be considered by China in support of the Agenda 2063 and the relevant flagship projects that we continue to have in the continent of Africa. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this joint initiative covers a wide range of programs. From a South African point of view, we consider it as an important and an issue that needs to be managed by all of us in order for us to continue to cooperate together and make it a point that we adopt the principle of subsidiary and also programs that are active and also that needs to be undertaken at the level where they need to be best handled. This means that the involvement of the AU and its agencies, including but not limited to the African Union Development Agency, as well as the regional and international institutions, such as the UNCTAD, to initiate and implement programs using their own generated resources should be promoted and also encouraged by all of us. It also calls for the engagement of continental and regional expertise and institutions for program management and also the implementation process, which should further enhance capacity building initiatives and also local ownership by various African member states. With the support of China, we can diversify our economies away from the export of raw materials to the production of manufactured goods and services. Through this initiative, we will be able to tackle poverty, inequality, and unemployment, which mainly affect our young people in the continent. And we will be able to support continental peace and security initiatives. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is time that we move away from abstract pledges towards strategic instruments which, if well aligned with Africa's priorities under our Agenda 2063, can accelerate our technological leap and also close the infrastructure gaps and reposition the continent of Africa as a global hub of innovation. The challenges and the opportunities that lie in front of us needs to be well aligned with all these policy imperatives that I've already alluded to. At the center of that, we need to drive the industrialization with the whole issue of appreciating the sovereignty of African states so that these partnerships can move us from exporters of raw materials to manufacturers of finished goods. That needs to be done by all of us. From fragmented economies to an integrated continental market, and also make sure that from consumers of technology to co-creators of innovation, we need to involve our young people in that particular program. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, partnerships must create jobs for the continent of Africa. They must transfer technology to the very same continent of Africa. They must also build industries in the very same continent of Africa. I want to thank the Republic of China for having came up with this strategic and noble objective where we need to help Africa to modernize. I thank you for your kind attention.